Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this episode of Carbon Experts Live, how carbon data powers smarter, low-risk assets. I'm your host for the day, Melina Zaharia. I run sustainability communications at OneClick LCA, and I'm very thrilled today to be joined by this panel of experts by two leaders in the industry of construction and manufacturing, Arcadis and Schneider Electric. Arcadis is a global leader in sustainable design, engineering, and consultancy solutions for natural and built assets. They partner with clients to deliver sustainable, data-driven solutions that improve quality of life through resilient infrastructure, future-ready cities, and responsible resource management. Schneider is a global leader in energy management and automation, empowering industries, businesses, and homes with digital solutions that enhance efficiency, resilience, and sustainability worldwide. And today, more specifically, we're welcoming Sylvain Frodet de la Forêt, Senior Vice President of Channels and Data at Schneider Electric.
Hello, Melina. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Sylvain. Sylvain leads global channel strategy for specifiers, contractors, and panel builders, driving forward strategic channel programs to foster business growth and enhance market share, as well as partner software initiatives focused on sustainability and circularity. Moving on from the Arcadis side, we have Marjolaine Verstegden, Global Solutions Director for Smart Sustainable Buildings at Arcadis. Hi, Marjolaine.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody.
Marjolaine has extensive experience and expertise in innovative technologies and sustainable design, and leads global strategies that transform buildings into resilient, future-ready assets. Moving on, we have Nestor Rouillet, Global Sustainability Technical Director at Arcadis, who leads the implementation of carbon and circularity metrics across Arcadis projects worldwide. Hi, Nestor.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure being here.
Last but not least, we have Scarlett Romano, who is a team leader, technical advisor in sustainability at Arcadis. Has over 6 years of experience and brings deep expertise in sustainable practices and certification systems, particularly BREEAM and LEED. BREEAM and LEED.
Perfect, yes. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
This webinar is brought to you by OneClick LCA, and I forgot to share the presentation. Yes. Small glitch. This webinar is brought to you by OneClick LCA, the world's largest LCA platform, delivering impact, compliance, and growth in over 170 countries. It brings together in-depth modeling capabilities of CIMA Pro with the ease of use and scalability of OneClick LCA. It includes the most comprehensive global LCA database with over 500,000 datasets and serves customers across manufacturing, construction, infrastructure, chemicals, and consumer goods supply chains, among others. So our agenda for the day: decarbonizing buildings to comply, de-risk assets, and deliver value. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of transparent MEP data in enabling smarter decisions, how Arcadis uses data to reduce emissions from real-world projects, and then we're going to look forward to current needs and gaps in the industry. So I'm going to pass this over now to Arcadis and Marjolaine and Nestor to talk more about decarbonizing buildings to comply, de-risk assets, and deliver value.
Thank you very much. Yeah, first of all, everybody knows, of course, a lot about operational carbon of buildings. And we talk about the energy reduction, be aware about water, and also try to solve your waste problems. So everybody is aware about that. But what about embodied carbon? That is something that becomes much more important. And it's not only because we want to use as low carbon materials as possible, and it's not only because there is a scarcity coming up about materials. So we have to be aware about how we design that, but also because we have seen that the building itself can increase in value because of the materials that you can reuse after a life cycle of a building. So it's very important to be aware about that because it is doing something with your investment as well. And that means that we want to innovate. So we are innovating, but also other companies like Schneider is also innovating to see how we can have the maximum value of that. Here you can see a picture that is made by One Click LCA, because if you talk about embodied carbon, it's not only about the material itself, it's more the way the material is coming from the place where the origin is up to the building itself. So it's also about the extraction, it's how to manufacturing it. What about transportation? And of course, the installation of the building has also been to be circular. But also about maintenance. It's very important if we talk about maintenance to get the maximum out of that and to use that to see how we can make it circular. And of course, the disposal of building materials and to reuse it and to make it modular. My last slide of today, and then we go to Nestor, is also a bit about how Arcadis is looking at this and how we approach it. And I think we can say that we look at it not only from downwards linear, but also to upwards circular. And that is a change how we deal with our designs as well. And it's really important that we close the loop. So we don't only look at modular buildings where we can use materials that can be reused afterwards, but also how can we use reused materials in the first steps of a new building. So use less, using better, and reusing all to minimize negative impact and risks. And that is a challenge for all of you. So I dare you, I challenge you to look at this and bring that into the projects and into the buildings that you own and that you have. But as the integral future forward sustainability approach, it is also important that we look at circular design, circular data. That is a very interesting one, because how do you do that? But also the circular processes. And of course, in the end, it has to be a financial circular business case. So I leave it like that. This is our starting point as Arcadis to show what our philosophy is about this topic. And of course, there is no time to waste. I think everybody is aware about that, specifically with new regulation that's coming up. So Nestor, you can go to the next slide and tell a bit more about the details.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Marjolaine. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate exactly the same message. The time to act is right now. And why do we have to act now? Well, you see here in the slide there are a few items here that I would like to cover right now. So first of all, we see that market trends are clear right now. I mean, we see that in Europe, we see that in the US. Decarbonizing buildings is not just about sustainability or just even the environment. So sustainability and decarbonizing right now is just about compliance, risk mitigation, risk management, and creating value. And this is exactly what we really need to do right now. So we see that in Europe, we are seeing that every year that the European Union is changing regulations, even in the United States. So that's what we see with the evolving regulatory landscape. This is happening right now, and we need to act now. We need to be not even acting now. We need to stay ahead of all these regulatory changes. They are changing, and they are not becoming simpler. They're even becoming more restrictive, more difficult to accomplish, more difficult to establish our own goals. And we see that in regional policies, building codes, and even standards. So we really need to do that right now. Secondly, what we see is that even the disclosure requirements, the ESG reporting is getting more restrictive. We really need to do that on a yearly basis. We see the directives coming from the European Union as well. So this is happening now. It's mandatory in some countries. And we also see, and I'm speaking in terms of Arcadis, we see that from our clients and from our investors, they want to see transparency. They want to see our reports. They want to see how well we are doing. So it's becoming mandatory, and we need to act now. And then it's also about compliance risks and opportunity. I just wanted to say that stranded assets are real. So your assets, imagine that you are managing a portfolio of buildings. Your buildings may be compliant today, but what happens in 10 years from now? They may not be compliant, they may be a stranded assets. So those assets are real, and we really need to be ahead of all these changes. And by acting today, I mean, those early birds who act today will be getting market access and a competitive edge. So you will be getting definitely ahead of that. How do we use carbon to get us ahead of all these trends that are changing right now? So basically, there are three ways to do that. Accurate measurements, definitely. And this is something that we see in the industry as well. we have data, but the way we use data may not be the best way to do it. So we see like a lot of problems, a lot of challenges dealing with data. And that's an issue right now. So we really need to use carbon accounting tools like, for example, One-Click LCA to get actual data, robust data for both operational and embodied carbon. And with that data, we're able to establish our own goals, our own benchmarking tools and databases. And this is exactly what I'm going to talk about in the next point, scenario analysis and target setting. So the better we know the data we're dealing with, the better goals we can establish and the more realistic, because we really need to target decarbonization with actual goals, scientific goals, science-based goals towards net zero. And then ongoing monitoring could be the other solution, which is, again, it's all about data. And in this case, it's about day-to-day data. How do we get that? For example, with the Schneider Electric Extractor platform. We get data and we track progress. So if we establish realistic goals, a realistic scenario, then this is the opportunity to track how well we're doing with that. So just to close this slide and pass it on to Sylvain, decarbonizing buildings is just not about ticking boxes or just meeting certain regulations. It's just about keeping the value of our assets, keeping them in the long term, and maybe and hopefully unlocking new opportunities. So with that, I would like to pass it on to Sylvain to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Nestor, and thank you, Marjolaine. So, building on that, maybe now we could look at how MEP data can drive smarter and low-risk decisions. So I'm really super happy and delighted to be part of this discussion today, or that conversation related to how carbon data is transforming the way we design, build, but also operate, by the way. At Schneider Electric, we do believe that environmental transparency is more than just, a regulatory compliancy topic. Is more a strategic enabler for creating smarter, low-risk, future-ready assets. And in this session, hopefully, I will be sharing how our own environmental data program is helping our partners and is helping customers to make better informed decisions. So, in fact, at Schneider Electric, we really intend to provide crucial information, such as environmental footprint, energy efficiency, but also information related with repack and remanufacture, materials and substances, and lifetime extension. And by doing so, we help our customers make choices that are aligned with their own sustainability goals. Also enabling them to track better, to understand better, and to reduce their own environmental impact. So our environmental data program takes its origin in a legacy program that we used to call the Green Premium Label. Since then, we have largely increased the number of data attributes for each of our products on each of our offers. And today, we have those data available for 110,000 commercial references. We aim to be at more than 150,000 commercial references by the end of the year. But more importantly, because these are big numbers, but more importantly, by the end of the year, we will be covering 80% of our turnover with those data, of Schneider Electric turnover with those data. The data we provide are available online. If you go on Schneider Electric website, you will find those data, and it's supposed to be made easy to be integrated into reporting requirements by the users. Now, if we switch to the next slide, thank you. If we go deeper on why we are doing this, why we are, let's say, investing so much on this data topic, I would say it's probably guided by 5 pillars, the 5 pillars you see here on the screen. And I truly believe that they are reflecting, in fact, our long-term commitment on both regulatory compliance on one side, but also making sure we bring value to our customers and partners. So first, anticipate regulation. Well, no mystery here. It's really about ensuring that we stay ahead of the evolving policies such as CSRD, but there are many others, making our products and our data future ready. Second, listen to customer pillar. This one is dear to my heart, I have to say. And it's highlighting how we care about the growing demand for reliable data and granular data. And what I mean here by reliable and granular is about going away from generic data, but going more deeper in more specific data related to each of the product and really specific to each manufacturer as well. And by doing so, it enables us to shape real solutions and real answer to our customer needs and partner needs in terms of data. The third one is about building trust. And we know how much it is important, especially when we want to address the risk of greenwashing. So it's all about prioritizing transparency, verification, helping stakeholders make credible decisions. And this is where, by the way, I can really say that the quality of the data is at least as much important as the quantity of the data. Earlier, I shared some quantity, but the quality of the data is mattering at least as much. Of course, we want to drive an impact that empowers smarter design and procurement choices that are directly supporting decarbonization goals of end users. And finally, we have the reshape the market pillar. And this is here really about leadership in environmental data for electrical system. We have to acknowledge, we have to recognize that so far, the electrical system, which is mainly the Schneider Electric domain, was not that much considered, right? So given the fact we are a leader, we are not the only leader, but we are a leader in our market. We want to keep being a leader as well on those topics, to a certain extent, set new standards, set a benchmark, I would say, and contribute to the acceleration of the shift to a more sustainable built environment, including for electrical system. Let's be clear, there is also a business benefit, a kind of first mover advantage, I would call it, in delivering meaningful data in order to have a lasting impact for Schneider Electric, but also for partners on customers. Now, if we move on here, I would say that AEC professionals, so yeah, next slide, please. AEC professionals, so professional from the construction industry, from the construction domain, often face challenges in accessing and using those data in their daily workflow. So I've just shared earlier that we make sure we share on our website, we share online. But is it really the most convenient way to access for the users, especially the users which are working on a full project or working on a full scope of work? So in order to solve this challenge, we have decided to partner together with One Click LCA and integrate more than 50,000 environmental product declarations, so EPDs to start with, into digital tools that our partners are really using on their daily basis, meaning making sure they find those data inside their own tools, inside their own daily tools. And by doing so, by ensuring an easier access to those environmental data, design teams, should they belong to design firm or should they belong to contractors, can confidently make their choices, assess impacts, and demonstrate environmental responsibility. And this is how we are really, let's say, helping our partners make smarter design low-risk assets as well through decarbonization by design. Next slide. I want to touch base a little bit on the circularity topic because it's highly related to data as well. I would say no. I mean, there is no way to implement true and strong at scale circular practices without strong data. So I would say circularity starts with smart designs, and I believe that the design firm listening to us today are not going to debate on this. But it also starts with the design of our own products, okay? Our own products and offers. So we start from the design stage. And for that purpose, we embed the eco-design principles from the outset extending product life, enhancing reliability, and also innovating in terms of business model. We have, the as-a-service model, for instance, which is intending to reduce waste and maximize the value for our customers at the same time. By the way, it's a good illustration that we can combine sustainability together with business and business expansion. So it's a little bit like moving away from ownership, owning something, and going more towards outcome-based or usage value-based outcome. Our strategy here is clear when it comes to circularity: use better, use longer, use again. So we are sourcing sustainable materials. We are extending the product lifespan through services. By the way, services is another strategic pillar for Schneider Electric. Should it be delivered by Schneider Electric itself or through our partners? And we also recirculate retired assets through take back and refurbishment. So this is really an end-to-end perspective that is helping our partners to meet performance, to meet cost, and meet sustainability goals all at once, all at the same time. And here again, I would say that transparency with data is key to circularity. And thanks to those EPD program and the partnership we have with One Click LCA, we managed to make it happen through the construction, the full construction ecosystem. Then, and I will end up with this slide. I would like to share with you two customer cases, because we often talk about embodied carbon, how design and materials choices shape the product's footprint. But what about the operational carbon, right? To me, I mean, to Schneider Electric is, I guess, for many companies here, it is just as important, as critical than the embodied carbon. And so we are talking here about the emissions which are generated during the lifetime of buildings. And this is where environmental data is becoming even more critical as a lever, a powerful lever, I would say, to drive this change. So we have two examples here. You have the HSBC place in Edmonton, where our EcoStruxure building operation has been helping modernize an aging office tower into a smart and sustainable asset. So we are really talking about brownfield here. Real-time data, which is enabling as well the operations team to optimize the energy usage, reduce emission, and achieve multiple certifications. And we know to what extent the certifications are having a strong impact on the value of the assets. So it has been contributing to reposition the building asset on its market. And on the right side, you have Aspiria, which is a very large innovation campus in Kansas, where our technologies have been helping to manage over more than 5,000 assets, cutting the energy use by 16%, the carbon emission by more than 35%, and driving a good saving, by the way, more than $1 million on a yearly basis. So quite interesting and quite substantial, as you can guess. So long story short, the real challenge is not only about the new builds, okay? It's also the brownfield sites where we know that we face fragmentation and sometimes a lack of data, and all this is slowing down the progress. That's why we really need clear standards here and clear benchmark to scale impact. And that really at Schneider Electric, we are committed to making environmental data a real driver for long-term performance, not only at the design stage, but all along the life cycle of the assets. But I'm sure that Arcadis is having also a lot of good practices to share. And for that purpose, I will hand it over to Scarlett.
Perfect. Thanks, Sylviane, for the introduction. So in the same line that Sylviane was speaking, and also my colleagues from Arcadis, we would like to present some lessons learned for a real project that we developed where data, the accessibility on the data and the quality of the data has a big challenge. This example comes from Sirius Real Estate Portfolio, who is a company leader operator in business and industrial park in Germany. And we really want to say thanks to the clients for allowing us to share all the information for their project. This is also has to do with the data and accessibility of data for this kind of calculations. So the objective of this project was to quantify the CO2 emissions of serious business activities focused in new construction and also in renovation activities. This project was structured in two phases. In the first phase, we focused in 3 pilot projects, which we developed in Revit. These were one office building, one storage, and one industrial building. And the goal was to assess and calculate the carbon emissions for the renovation activities. Our main challenge here is that we received over 60,000 documents with information and documentation of the material use, quantities, and so on. So this huge volume of information obviously was difficult to manage, to evaluate, and to quantify. This includes searching through purchase order, document for contractor, contracts, and so on. Managing this volume of data took us a lot of time and also coordination. To help, we build details building catalog, and we use also BIM models that we've developed in Revit to help us to visualize this information. This helps us both mapping the existing condition of the buildings and also which will be the renovation activities that were planned for them. In the phase number 2, the objective was to escalate the information that we obtained for the pilot project for the entire portfolio of the clients, where we use project data, contracts, and also the software one-click to calculate the carbon emissions. Since some material were not completely defined or were missing, we filled this gap using a market standard, assumption, and also our own expertise. BIM helped us also here to visualize this missing information regarding quantities, for example. Our second big challenge here was defining, as also my colleague for Schneider Electric, Sylvian, indicate what was the specific material that was used. This accuracy of the data was key in our development. So here, now that you already know a little bit about serious projects, I would like to share with you our main challenges. The first one was the high volume of data. As I already told you, we received more than 60,000 documents. That was really huge. That was impossible to navigate and also check all of them and understood all of this. And also some of the documents were not inconsistent with the other one. So we really need to, together with the clients, obviously with our client series, we check and evaluate how we will approach a project with this high volume of information. The second one was the lack of industry benchmark for renovations. Unlike new construction projects, there are not a standardized benchmark for renovation activities. Now, currently for new buildings, we use a carbon HERES benchmark, which is a possibility that can be obtained in the software one click, which help us a lot. But currently, there is not the same tool or the same information approach for renovation activities. So this also was a big challenge, because when we obtained the emissions that the renovation activities contribute, we were not able to understand if this number was a huge quantity of emission, medium or normal or standard emissions, or a low emission. And the third one was the difficulty identified precisely which were the materials or used. We have a lot of contract information, but several times the information of the material was generic. For example, they changed the windows, but which type of specific windows was changed? What the materiality that was used? How many of there were implemented? So here we use standards that we have internally in Arcadis, also our know and experience, and some benchmarks that we obtained from the market. Moving on. Despite this challenge, and also with the possibility to work together with our client series, we developed a comprehensive and also really methodologized development to develop these calculations. So, and we were able to develop the CO2 calculation for their entire portfolio. Our approach provided 3 key outcomes. The first one is that we were able, together obviously with the client, to calculate the CO2 balance and also prioritize the information that we receive. This we obtained with the software one-click LCA. The second one is that we developed the carbonization action and transparent scale reporting. Here, with all the documentation data and all the methodologies and the reporting that we developed during the process, we offered the client the possibility to with this information, make transparent SG reporting, also ensuring that the methodology that we developed together with the client were able to be replicated in future projects. And the third one is we provide detailed documentation and transparent calculation to our clients. This is a key because it's not only regarding to which the information that we are using, it's also in how much detail we were able to obtain the emission of the material that we are considering and how we can reply this methodology so we ensure that for the future, we always compare the same numbers. This is key because we always need to be sure that when we compare to be able to develop benchmark, we are comparing the same methodologies with other projects. With this approach and that we developed together with the clients, and also that we were able to use different digitalization tools, we won a prize in 2022 in Germany, which is the Green Beam Award. This was as a result of this partnership together with our client series and also with this approach. As also my colleague Nestor said, we need to go ahead of the requirements that are being developed for CO2 emissions or for embodied operational carbon. So this price represents this. Despite the fact that benchmarks were not developed in this moment or methodology in the moment of this calculation were not available in the market, together with the client, we developed a strategy that was recognized in Germany to be a strategy that contributes as a leader market for the emissions calculations of renovation activities. If we move forward, this project helped us in Arcadis to develop our strategy internally. We have a detailed process where we use OneClick as our partner for the calculations of life cycle assessment. We have a detailed and extensive data revision. We always evaluate the quality and the quantity of the information that we receive. And also we have internally our guidelines for carbon savings, because it's not only the challenge to calculate that is always helpful because we have transparent data. It's also the challenge to develop optimization measurements that can be implemented in the project, so we help the clients to achieve their target in reduction for CO2 emissions. Now, so we have in Arcadis a three-step methodology. This three-step methodology helps us to offer all of our clients a transparent opportunity to calculate and develop the life cycle assessment. The first one is we have kickoff data collection. This kickoff data collection helps us to meet with the client and also develop all the calculations process and inform in this meeting which is the type of information that is required, how we need to share this information, and which is the detail of information that is required. The second one is the phase delivery. Here we calculate the information, the life cycle assessment initially, and then we develop a second when the project is already developed. So we are able to compare what was the initial emissions and what was the one that was obtained at the end. And also in the third one was regarding to the carbon reduction alternatives. This phase we focus in evaluating all the possibilities that we can develop to reduce the emissions. And here I will need to be really transparent. I'm really glad that we have this cooperation with the Schneider Electric, that we are also using the Schneider Electric information, and we are gathering the data that they share with us, because as also Sylvia mentioned, the information of emission for electrical materials is really challenging to find. And normally it is not always considered in the emissions. So we here recognize the value of having this partnership and be able to use and also share data, which is one of the main topics that we are talking in this webinar, to share data with our partners, Schneider Electric, and be able to learn as well of the detailed information they manage. And with this approach, I finished what is the methodology for Arcadis.
Thank you, Scarlett. Oh. Nestor, I think the floor is yours now.
Yeah.
On to the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Melina, and thank you, Scarlett. That was very, very insightful. So, because bringing all this theoretical decarbonization into the practice of our projects is usually very, very useful. So let's look at the future. And I think this is one of the most important questions that we have. It's like the $1 million question. What will the future bring? So definitely, in order to provide an answer to this question, we really need to look at the existing gaps that we have right now. I probably mentioned some of these gaps already in my previous slide. And the way we solve these gaps is the way we will look at the future. And you will tell me later if the future looks brighter or not, but hopefully yes. So current gaps we have here. Uh, Again, I think I mentioned this as well in my previous slide, data availability. We really have a problem here with data in the industry. This is something that in conversations with my colleagues in Arcadis, even with One-Click LCA, Schneider, and other colleagues in the industry, we all see this as a problem. Data availability is really a problem. It's not available everywhere. We manage data, but the problem is sometimes we don't know how to use that data. Sometimes we miss it. So 3 solutions to that could be adopting integrated digital platforms. So that's exactly what we're doing. So we are using One-Click LCA platform, Schneider's platforms, and that way maybe we can collect data and make sense of that data. Set data standards and common protocols, another important thing. Common approaches. This is definitely really important for all of us in the industry to have the same approach. If we use data in the same way, we will make sense of that data much better than everybody using data in a different way. And automate data collection, I already mentioned that in the other slide. So if we have the technological platforms to store data and manipulate data, it will be really helpful to bridge this gap. Again, data from a different perspective, which is limited visibility into supply chain emissions. That is really difficult. So we usually have in a project, we have a lot of visibility for scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, and then scope 3 emissions seem to be like the dark side of the moon. It's there, it's critical, but we don't really see it. So how can we solve this gap here? I would like to highlight these 2 items here instead of these. I mean, we have 3, but I would like to highlight 2. Demanding transparent product data and engaging with suppliers. I think this is critical. Having this collaboration and getting these some sort of partnerships, collaborations with all of those stakeholders involved in the supply chain, that is definitely the key to have visibility on the scope 3 emissions. And then using leverage life cycle assessment tools, like for example, One-Click LCA, then that's the way we collect data and use it throughout the entire supply chain. Regulatory complexity, I spoke about that earlier. This is definitely a gap, and it's happening right now. And solutions to that gap, you see that the same way that we are also monitoring carbon data, or at least that could be like a recommendable action to do. So we are monitoring also regulations. We know regulations are going to change, are changing, are evolving rapidly. So the best way to anticipate these changes is by monitoring them on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, to be ahead of any potential changes. Scenario planning on carbon data, once we know what is going to happen with these regulations, and then using all the data we have, then we are able to establish realistic targets. And then again, industry harmonization. This is again a common approach, same thing that I was talking about, the supply chain emissions. The better, the more harmonized approach we have for all this, the better for us in terms of decarbonizing. We all really need to have the same approach in this. And then this is a big one, financial and market barriers. Definitely there is a problem with this because sustainability is usually seen as a cost, as a burden, to be honest, and it's difficult to bring up the business value, the business case of sustainability. There are a lot of resources out there that talk about this, and they all make sense. They are all really, really good documents. And in order to bridge this gap about the financial barriers, we really need to look at sustainability from the non-financial value, because there is a lot of value there that maybe not in the short term, but maybe in the long term you will get that. So that's the way we really need to look at the non-financial value. We need to demonstrate the return of investment by using all these resources. Even in Arcadis, we have a lot of resources that will inform you about this return of investment from sustainability. And then this is additionally to the regulatory complexity, let's say, incentives. We really need to find incentives. There are some green financing instruments out there and products, financial products and tax credits, but we need to act on this front as well. So let me just close this slide by saying that, again, do we look at the future and see it brighter or not? In this case, I mean, let's look at the bright side and say yes. I mean, it's not about just avoiding all these gaps or just pretending they're not there. We need to look at them, we need to face them, and we need to bring all these solutions in place. And even if you are, please share any other solutions because we really need them. This is about all decarbonization. And I just wanted to finalize this presentation with this other slide about what a sustainable building looks like. So in addition to decarbonization, and if we really bridge all these gaps, let's look at a brighter future, like I was saying, by thinking about these kind of buildings. So Scarlett was presenting the kind of projects we have in Arcadis, and in the end, this is what we really want to do. This is what we are looking at in the future, in not so far away future. I mean, I think we are getting closer to this, and these are the kind of strategies and actions that we need to take in a building. It should be climate adaptive, accessible. We should include water management in our buildings. It should be circular, of course, carbon positive towards net zero and even positive. Building performance should be included. And let's not forget about all the human aspects of sustainability, of course. Connection of people, health and well-being, smart and cognitive buildings, and positive impact on biodiversity. So definitely, at least in Arcadis, and I'm sure in One Click LCA and Schneider, this is the way we think the future looks like. So let's put it all together and make a brighter future. So I think with this, we finish the presentation, and back to you, Melina.
Thank you, Nestor. And Scarlett, this was really interesting. I particularly connected with the statement, Scope 3 emissions are like the dark side of the moon. I think everyone in the audience can really connect with this statement. But there are lots of things to be done in the industry for sure. And now I want to take a moment to just inform our audience that One Click LCA has the world's largest construction LCA database to help AC professionals make informed carbon choices and manufacturers showcase their transparent data, which are so important as we just talked about. So if you're interested in learning more about our construction LCA database, please, and you want to be contacted by our team, please click yes in the poll that you now see in front of you. Thank you very much. And now, if we want to move on, we have a couple of nice questions from the audience that I would like to ask our speakers, if they don't mind. And I'm going to close the slides for this. All right. First question from Ana Maria Reyes Romero is to be able to have more granular data rather than generic. Do you have any strategies for LCA phases that are really hard to assess because of the uncertainty, such as for the C, end of life, or D module? And I think either Arcadis or Schneider could take this, and I can repeat it. It has to do with, is it better to have more granular data than generic, or are there any strategies for LCA phases that are really hard to assess, specifically C through D? I do not see any takers.
Anybody wants to take the question? I can definitely take the question. I think maybe Scarlett was better equipped to answer this question, but I think she froze a little bit. So definitely, it's interesting to have all these granular data in a life cycle assessment in all the different stages. It's hard to find reliable sources, to be honest, because at some point, those phases of the project are even the most difficult ones. I have to say that in Arcadis, for example, clients are really interested in the operational phase of the asset, not only understanding the carbon emissions from embodied carbon in phases A1 to A4 or A5. But in this case, it's really hard to find reliable data for all that. So far, what we really need to do is to rely on the resources we have there in software that we have out there, like for example, one-click LCA, and make the best assumptions. We can also rely on the existing regulations because, like I was saying, they are evolving, and I think they're becoming more granular as we speak. And I think that could be the way to address that uncertainty that you mentioned. But definitely, I agree with you, Ana Maria, that this is a difficult scenario. I don't know if Scarlett, I was just answering this question about granularity and how can we ensure that we have reliable data in phases C1 to D in this case, which is mostly related to circularity, let's say.
Yeah, you're right. It is a big challenge. Okay, we have the partner for one click. Apart from that, I will say that also make a difference the partnership. For example, the one that we have between Arcadis and Schneider Electric. So we are able to share information when we found it. And also some clients, and I will say again, our client series that is willing to share also the lesson learned and the information of data that they found for their own portfolio. I will say that this is key, that we are not the owner of the data. To have a better world, we need to share the data that we found, and we need to establish more partnership between the companies. We are not competitors. We need to see us as a big community who face the challenge together to make a better world.
I also wanted to add something because I think as Arcadis, we are really aware that the data for materials in every country is different. And combine that with regulation, we have seen that in the beginning of the presentation, there is so much more than just the material itself that has influence on the carbon. And I think that altogether means that you have to be very critical about the data that you use. And sometimes if you have to do an assessment on a very high level, as a sort of first step, you can use a more generic sort of data, but the more you are much more precise about location and about what the effect is of what you want to achieve, then you need specific data. So we are much aware about that.
If I may add as well, it's correct that it's becoming even more complex with the world deglobalizing, if I may say, because as a consequence, we need to establish supply chains which are local, which are different from one geography to another, with different suppliers from one geography to another. And this is something we need to take into consideration. So we should not neglect as well the effort that has to be, let's say, delivered by all the supply chain as well to be in this capacity to do so.
This is very interesting. Thank you very much for joining in, all of you, and chiming in. I have another question that I think we can also tackle, if people don't mind. The second question is the system boundary of Arcadis, Schneider Electric, and LCA method inclusive of social impact? And does the design address the ecosystem services?
I can start. You want? Okay, Marielle, sorry.
Yeah, well, you can do it as well. But I think, we have a lot of systems within Arcadis that we use. And more specific, we have also tools where we can calculate, for instance, the effect on biodiversity of what we do with the buildings, or also what the impact is on people, or what the effect of climate change is on the risks of the building. So we have different types. But I think one-click LCA is very strong if you talk about materials and the embodied carbon, what we're talking about, and the effect, including the financial effects on long-term of the built environment. So, but of course, yeah, it's a puzzle, and we use more than one system to do that.
Exactly. In this line, just to offer more information in Arcadis, one of the things that I found that is really important that we develop is we don't see sustainability from one just perspective. We see this with several perspective and also for different disciplinary approach. So, for example, when we develop life cycle calculations, we always inform clients the CO2 emissions is one of the aspects that we need to focus, that we also need to focus, for example, in the impact, ecological topics, social aspect, and we are able to work with the colleagues for all the departments and offer a global view. And also, this is what it's making challenge, because sometimes we can find, for example, a very good material regarding to say CO2 emissions, but the cost of this material is so high. So then we don't have the benefit from cost perspective of this material is only localized in one country. What happened when the project is in the other corner of the world? So then it is when it is getting challenges, and we need to be all and evaluate all the aspects. But as my colleague said, we have the structure in Arcadis to see all of these elements and also be able to calculate. I think so this is a key, be able to calculate and mature, like scientifically, how we impact these in other aspects.
Here, Scarlett, you touch a little bit the topic of the TCO, by the way, okay? The cost of the product against the carbon. I think that there is also another trade-off, which is carbon against carbon, meaning the embodied carbon versus the carbon in operation, the emissions in operation. Because in our system, in electrical system, for instance, this is something we experience because our systems are live, meaning due to their usage, they are emitting carbon during the life of the building, right? So it can be that we better increase the carbon at the construction stage, for instance, have a bigger, bigger bus bar, for instance, made of copper, so it's not super, let's say, environmental friendly, right? But at the same time, the bigger it is, the more efficient it is in operation, right? So it's really also depending on the usage, okay, on the, I would say, the mission profile to a certain extent of the assets. So this is something that we have to be in capacity to explain to customers. And this is where we are back to the TCO topic, right? You need to make sure, especially for greenfield, that the one you are discussing with at the design and build stage will see the benefit in operation. For the built environment, for brownfield, it's an easier discussion, I would say, because obviously you can discuss with the same player to a certain extent. But these are the kind of trade-off on discussion that are really interesting, by the way, because then you start to discuss about the mission profile of the building. So you start to discuss about the process of the customer itself. So it's triggering other good discussion usually.
Thank you, Sylvain. That was really, really interesting. Yeah, they did touch the TCO, which was also another question, I think. But sadly, we don't really have that much more time now. It was a very engaging conversation, and I want to thank you all for joining. And I want to just remind everyone in the audience and to you as well that we do have some free LCA and EBD bootcamps. And by completing them, the participants can also gain a recognized certificate. And it's very useful in-depth knowledge given by our experts in One-Click LCA. So if everyone is interested, you will find links in the chat. And one last appeal has to do with our 2026 Carbon Experts Report. It's the time of the year where we gather insights from the industry, from the AC professionals and from manufacturers to actually help shape next year's carbon benchmarks. And this is a research project that's annual for us. We did this last year with a lot of success and a lot of interesting insights. So I would really want to ask anyone who's in the audience to just take the survey. It only takes 5 minutes. There's going to be a link in the chat and help us shape next year's carbon benchmarks. And with this, I want to thank everyone for joining and staying even a bit later. And this was a really, really interesting and engaging discussion. Thank you, Sylvain, Marceline, Nestor, Scarlett. This was really enlightening, I think, and I definitely got a lot out of this.
Thank you, Melina.
Thank you,
team.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.